I think we've all heard of Vlad the Impaler, the infamous historical figure in Romanian and world history who is widely associated with violence, cruelty, and bloodlust. But have you ever wondered, why is that? What if I tell you that the real person behind this frightening portrayal of an evil ruler vampire in history is actually even more terrifying? In this video, you will discover exactly why Dracula earned the reputation he has and why he is so terribly remembered to this day, along with some, to say the least, disturbing stories. Get ready to be amazed and a little bit grossed out. So, let's start from the beginning. Vlad III, later known as Vlad the Impaler, was born in 1431 in Transylvania, as the second son of Vlad II Dracula, Duke of Wallachia. The name Dracula is the nickname that Vlad, the father, obtained in connection with his receiving membership in the Order of the Dragon, a militant fraternity. Dracula means dragon, so Dracula, the name the Impaler is famous for, means the son of a dragon. This order was dedicated to halting the Ottoman advance into Europe, and so was Vlad II. He wasn't keen to be ruled by the Ottoman Empire, so Ottoman Sultan Murad II imprisoned him, together with his sons, Vlad and Radu. The young brothers remained hostages at his court after their father was released, to secure his loyalty. There, Vlad the Impaler continued his military training, studied classical art and philosophy, and came into contact with people from other cultures, such as Germans and Hungarians. He also learned various ways of torture, by the way. These experiences, as you will see, would come in handy in his remarkable life. After the death of his father, Vlad III invaded Wallachia and began to rule with an iron fist. Hundreds, or some say thousands, of his opponents were executed at Vlad's order. After a conflict with Saxon merchants, Vlad ransacked and tortured some of those men, and supposedly had them and their children impaled or burnt alive, if you were wondering how he got his nickname, the Impaler. What is impaling? It's a gruesome form of torture and death. A metal or wooden pole is inserted through the body. The pole would enter through the rectum and exit near the victim's shoulders, neck, or mouth. The pole was then raised vertically for display. It could take days for the impaled person to die. At the same time, he effected a great change and revolutionized the affairs of Wallachia. Vlad fought to protect his lands and their independence, ensuring the fair conduct of trade. He was the first ruler to integrate the gypsy community into the Romanian army. He took measures to discourage or brutally punish laziness and thievery. There is an interesting story about a golden cup that stood at a fountain, which nobody dared to steal because, well, let's just say, a thief would not live long. As the ruler of Wallachia, Vlad was obligated to pay annual tribute to the Ottoman Sultan, but at some point, he simply refused to do it. The Sultan kept sending diplomatic representatives to Vlad, reminding him of his obligations, but without any success. Vlad executed the Ottoman officials sent by Sultan Mehmed to collect the tribute. When he asked them to show him respect and take down their turbans, they refused for religious reasons. He ordered their turbans to be nailed to their heads. He then decided to free himself from Ottoman rule. Vlad's army devastated villages along the Danube River, which were under the rule of the Ottoman Turks. He personally stated that more than 23,884 Turks and Bulgarians had been killed at his order during the campaign, many of whom were burned alive in their houses. Vlad declared that he had broken the peace with the Sultan for the preservation of Christianity and the strengthening of the Catholic faith. So, what do you think? How furious was the Sultan when he heard all of this? Well, so furious that he raised an army of more than 150,000 men. It was the second largest army raised until then. The more numerous army was the one besieging Constantinople. The Sultan's intention was to overthrow Vlad and grant Wallachia to his brother, Radu. Vlad's army, on the other hand, included 10,000 to 12,000 troops, comprised of nobles, their sons and courtiers, and 40,000 mercenaries, mainly made up of light cavalry. What can a commander do when so desperately outnumbered? Be creative, of course, and Vlad Dracula was very, very creative. Aware that he could not win an open battle, he relied on guerrilla warfare. One of his daring moves was breaking into the Ottoman camp in the middle of the night, disguised as a Turk, just wandering around, speaking in fluent Turkish, and asking where the Sultan's tent was. Nothing wrong with that, right? His plan actually was to capture or kill the Sultan himself. However, the Wallachians missed his tent and attacked the tents of the viziers Mahmud Pasha and Isaac, and were forced to retreat to the capital of Wallachia, Târgoviște. Mehmed's army followed them. Vlad was not going to give them an easy pass. He did everything he could to make their lives absolutely miserable. He poisoned the waters with bodies of dead animals, and also created marshes by diverting the waters of small rivers. He evacuated the population and animals to the mountains, so the army had nothing to eat or drink. Traps were created by the digging of pits covered with leaves and timber. That's not all. He would also send ill people suffering from lethal diseases, such as bubonic plague, tuberculosis, and leprosy, to intermix with Turks and infect them. His men would set fire to fields and villages, so the heat and smoke slowed down the enemy's march. Vlad would take any opportunity to harass and attack the enemy from the flanks, day and night, causing more and more losses to the Sultan's army. So, after days of suffering, struggling with hunger, thirst, diseases, and constant attacks, the Ottoman army arrived at Targovishte only to find the town completely deserted. There was no one in sight. Well, no one alive at least. What they did see, let's just say it was a scene from a horror movie. A scary, diabolical movie. Unfortunately for those poor soldiers, it was reality. It was something that the Ottomans, for lack of a better word, described as a forest of the impaled. There were more than 20,000 men, women, and children impaled on stakes. It was said that there were infants too, affixed to their mothers on the stakes, and birds had made their nests in their internals. I would hate to spoil your dinner or anything, but can you imagine the sight and the smell of the dead with their intestines hanging out, just left there rotting? The Turks were terrified and distraught, for sure. I mean, who would do such a hideous thing? The one and only, Vlad the Impaler, of course. But, in his favor, most of the impaled people were dead Ottoman soldiers and his opponents, and the others were dug out from graves to give a bigger impression on the enemy. After seeing this, Sultan Mehmed II turned back to Constantinople, ordering the eyes of his soldiers to be covered until they exited the region. Only 1 out of every 100 soldiers was able to see, so that he could lead the others. After numerous battles, Vlad was eventually defeated and killed. Some stories indicated that his head was sent to the Sultan, and it was placed on a stake in Constantinople. By today's standards, Vlad the Impaler would most certainly be convicted of war crimes and genocide. But we should not forget the time in which he lived. In the 15th century, there were no laws and regulations concerning warfare and protecting civilians. According to many, he was the protector of his people, fighting for the independence of his lands, punishing criminals and disloyal men in a desire to strengthen his country. What do you think? Was Vlad a monstrous evil sadist, or a freedom fighter with unusual ideas about how to win an unfair fight? Is he a villain or a hero? The truth must lie somewhere in the middle. A perfect starting point for debate, don't you think? Thank you for watching.